Karen thought she could rule the neighborhood with an iron fist, until she messed with the one person who owned her house. Alex stood on the porch of their cozy suburban home, watering the potted plants that lined the railing. The neighborhood was picturesque. Rows of identical houses with manicured lawns, children playing in driveways, and the occasional dog walker passing by. It seemed like the perfect place to settle down. But there was one glaring issue. Karen from the Homeowners Association, HOA. Karen had earned a reputation as the self-appointed queen of the cul-de-sac. Armed with her clipboard, she patrolled the streets, scrutinizing every detail of her neighbors' lives. From enforcing paint color guidelines to measuring grass height with a ruler, Karen took her role very seriously. And unfortunately for Alex, they had become her latest target. The feud began innocently enough. Alex decided to repaint their front door a cheerful shade of teal, hoping to add some personality to the otherwise cookie-cutter exterior. While most neighbors complimented the fresh look, Karen was less than thrilled. She showed up at Alex's doorstep unannounced, holding a thick binder labeled HOA Guidelines, and wearing an expression that could curdle milk. "Teal is not an approved color," Karen announced, pointing dramatically at the door. "You'll need to repaint it immediately or face consequences." Alex tried to reason with her, explaining how the vibrant hue brought life to the house, but Karen wouldn't budge. That day marked the beginning of a cold war between them. Notes started appearing on Alex's door regularly. Complaints about lawn maintenance, mailbox angles, and even the placement of holiday decorations. Each note ended with the same ominous threat: comply or else. The tension between Alex and Karen had been simmering for months, but it was about to boil over. What started as a minor disagreement over a teal-painted front door had spiraled into an all-out war of wills. For Alex, the conflict felt personal, like they were being singled out by Karen's unrelenting crusade for control. Each new complaint seemed more absurd than the last, pushing Alex further toward their breaking point. And yet, little did they know that things were about to take a dramatic turn. It began one crisp Saturday morning when Alex woke up to find a glaring orange sticker plastered across their garage door. The bold red letters screamed "Violation Notice," accompanied by a list of alleged infractions. According to the notice, Alex's garden gnomes, a whimsical collection they carefully curated over the years, were deemed non-compliant with HOA aesthetic standards. This accusation struck a nerve. To Alex, those gnomes weren't just decorations. They represented creativity, individuality, and a refusal to conform to the sterile uniformity Karen so desperately enforced. Frustrated but unwilling to escalate the situation unnecessarily, Alex decided to remove the gnomes temporarily. They replaced them with plain flower pots, hoping this compromise would appease Karen and put an end to her relentless complaints. But instead of relenting, Karen doubled down. A few days later, another violation notice appeared on Alex's door, this time accusing them of parking too close to the curb. Alex couldn't believe what they were reading. Their car was parked perfectly within legal limits, as confirmed by local ordinances. Yet here was Karen again, wielding her clipboard like a weapon, fabricating issues where none existed. At this point, Alex realized something fundamental. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules, she was targeting them personally. Whether it was jealousy, insecurity, or some other motive driving her behavior, Alex knew they needed answers. Determined to fight back, they decided to dig deeper into the HOA's operations. After all, if Karen was going to play dirty, Alex would have no choice but to uncover whatever skeletons lay hidden in the organization's closet. Over the next several days, Alex immersed themselves in research. They requested copies of the HOA's governing documents, including its bylaws, covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CC and Rs. These dense legal texts were anything but thrilling reading material, but Alex pressed on, determined to understand every detail. As they sifted through page after page of bureaucratic jargon, one particular clause caught their attention: membership eligibility. According to the document, only individuals who owned property within the community were permitted to serve on the HOA board. This revelation piqued Alex's curiosity. Could it be possible that Karen, despite her authoritative demeanor, didn't actually meet this basic requirement? To test their theory, Alex cross-referenced the HOA's membership roster with public property records. What they discovered left them stunned. Karen's name was nowhere to be found among the list of homeowners. In fact, she didn't even live in the neighborhood. Instead, she rented a modest house 3 blocks away, an arrangement that clearly violated the HOA's eligibility criteria. How could someone who didn't own property in the community wield such power over it? More importantly, how had nobody noticed before now? Armed with this explosive information, Alex faced a critical decision. They could expose Karen's hypocrisy quietly, perhaps filing a formal grievance with the HOA or alerting other board members privately. Or they could go big, using the upcoming monthly meeting to confront Karen publicly and force accountability. After weighing their options, Alex chose the latter. If Karen thrived on intimidation and manipulation, then Alex would counter her tactics with transparency and courage. It was time to bring her reign of terror to an end. In preparation for the showdown, Alex gathered concrete evidence to support their claims. They printed copies of the relevant HOA bylaws, along with screenshots of property records proving Karen's lack of ownership. Additionally, Alex reached out to a few trusted neighbors, sharing their findings and encouraging them to attend the meeting. While initially skeptical, these neighbors quickly warmed to Alex's cause once they understood the extent of Karen's misconduct. Together, they agreed to present a united front against her authoritarian leadership. As the day of the meeting approached, Alex's nerves buzzed with anticipation. They rehearsed their speech repeatedly, ensuring they could articulate their points clearly and confidently. At the same time, they braced themselves for potential backlash. Karen wasn't likely to take this lying down, and Alex knew she might lash out in unpredictable ways. Still, they reminded themselves why they were doing this, not just for revenge or vindication, but for justice. For too long, Karen had exploited her position to bully and belittle others. Someone needed to stand up to her, and Alex had decided that person would be them. On the evening of the meeting, Alex arrived early, clutching their folder of evidence tightly. The room buzzed with chatter as residents trickled in, many eager to discuss ongoing issues ranging from potholes to broken streetlights. Karen sat at the head of the table, exuding authority as usual. Her clipboard rested beside her, and her pen hovered expectantly above a stack of papers. When Alex raised their hand during the public comment period, Karen glanced up briefly, her expression one of mild annoyance. She probably assumed this would be another routine complaint, easily dismissed with a wave of her hand. Little did she know, her world was about to crumble. "I'd like to address a concern regarding compliance with HOA membership qualifications," Alex announced, standing tall. All eyes turned toward them, including Karen's, which narrowed suspiciously. Taking a deep breath, Alex continued. "As many of you may know, the HOA bylaws clearly state that only homeowners are eligible to serve on the board. Imagine my surprise when I discovered that our esteemed chairperson, Karen, does not meet this criterion. In fact, she doesn't even own property in our community." The room erupted into gasps and murmurs. Neighbors exchanged incredulous glances, while Karen's face flushed a deep shade of crimson. Someone shouted, "Is this true?" Another chimed in, "How did she get on the board?" Before Karen could respond, Alex delivered the final blow. "There's more," they said, pulling out additional documents. "I recently purchased the house Karen rents, which means, technically, I'm her landlord." Silence fell over the room as the weight of Alex's words sank in. Karen stammered incoherently, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before everyone's eyes. For years, she had manipulated the system, imposing arbitrary rules and punishing those who dared defy her. Now, exposed and humiliated, she had nowhere to hide. The meeting devolved into chaos as residents demanded answers and called for immediate action. By the end of the night, plans were underway to hold a special election to replace Karen and any other non-compliant board members. For Alex, the victory was bittersweet. On one hand, they had successfully dismantled Karen's toxic grip on the neighborhood. On the other hand, they couldn't help but feel saddened by the lengths people would go to exert control over others. Still, as they walked home that night, Alex allowed themselves a small smile. Justice had prevailed, and the community was finally free to embrace its true spirit, one that celebrated diversity, creativity, and mutual respect. The HOA meeting was the stage, and Alex had spent days preparing for this moment, the culmination of weeks of frustration, research, and determination. This wasn't just about exposing Karen's hypocrisy anymore. It was about reclaiming power from someone who had wielded it unfairly for far too long. As Alex entered the community center where the meeting was being held, they felt a mix of nerves and adrenaline coursing through them. The room buzzed with the usual chatter, neighbors discussing potholes, broken streetlights, and landscaping budgets. But tonight, the atmosphere carried an undercurrent of tension, as if everyone sensed that something significant was about to unfold. Karen sat at the head of the table, her posture rigid and authoritative, clutching her ever-present clipboard like a shield. Her demeanor exuded confidence, as though she already knew how the evening would play out. Complaints would be voiced, she dismissed them with practiced indifference, and life in the neighborhood would continue under her ironclad rule. What she didn't know, and what Alex was about to reveal, was that her reign was about to come crashing down. When the meeting chair called for public comments, Alex stood up, their heart pounding but their expression calm and composed. They cleared their throat and began speaking in a steady voice, commanding the attention of everyone in the room. "I'd like to address a concern regarding compliance with HOA membership qualifications," Alex said, their tone measured yet firm. All eyes turned toward them, including Karen's, whose narrowed gaze betrayed a flicker of suspicion. She probably assumed this was another routine grievance, easily deflected with vague promises or outright denial. But Alex wasn't here to complain, they were here to expose. "As many of you may know," Alex continued, holding up a printed copy of the HOA bylaws for emphasis, "the governing documents clearly state that only homeowners are eligible to serve on the board. Imagine my surprise when I discovered that our esteemed chairperson, Karen, does not meet this criterion." A murmur rippled through the crowd as heads swiveled toward Karen, whose face began to redden. Before she could interject, Alex pressed on. "In fact, Karen doesn't even own property in our community. She rents a house 3 blocks away." The room erupted into gasps and whispers. Neighbors leaned forward in their seats, exchanging incredulous glances. Someone shouted, "Is this true?" Another neighbor demanded, "How did she get on the board?" Karen's carefully constructed authority was unraveling before their very eyes. For years, she had lorded over the neighborhood, enforcing rules with ruthless precision and punishing those who dared step out of line. And now, it seemed she'd have been violating the most basic rule of all, eligibility to serve. But Alex wasn't finished. With a slight smirk playing at the corners of their mouth, they delivered the knockout punch. "There's more," they said, pulling out additional documents from their folder. "I recently purchased the house that Karen rents." Gasps turned into stunned silence as the realization sank in. Not only was Karen ineligible to serve on the board, but the person standing before them, the same person she had tried to bully and evict, was now technically her landlord. The revelation hit like a bombshell. Karen's jaw dropped, her clipboard slipping from her fingers and clattering onto the table. Her face flushed a deep shade of crimson as she fumbled for words. This is outrageous," she sputtered, pointing an accusatory finger at Alex. "You're lying. You can't prove any of this." "Oh, but I can," Alex replied coolly, unfazed by Karen's outburst. They handed photocopies of the property records and purchase agreement to the meeting chair, who scanned them quickly before passing them along to other board members. One by one, the documents confirmed Alex's claims. Karen was indeed renting the house, and Alex was now its rightful owner. The irony was almost poetic. Karen, the self-proclaimed enforcer of rules, had been living in violation of the very regulations she so zealously upheld. As the evidence circulated among the board members, the room descended into chaos. Voices rose in outrage, demanding explanations and accountability. Some neighbors expressed disbelief, while others vented their frustrations about Karen's past behavior. "She fined me for having a wind chime last year," one woman exclaimed. "And she made me repaint my mailbox because it was too colorful," added another. The floodgates had opened, and years of pent-up resentment poured forth. Karen, meanwhile, struggled to regain control of the situation. "This is preposterous," she cried, slamming her fist on the table. "These allegations are baseless. I've dedicated myself to improving this community, and this is how you repay me. Improving. Alex shot back, their voice rising slightly but remaining controlled. You've terrorized this community, Karen. You've used your position to bully people into submission, making arbitrary decisions based on your own preferences rather than what's best for everyone. And now we know you've been doing it without even meeting the basic requirements to serve. The meeting chair, visibly uncomfortable, attempted to restore order. We'll need to review these findings thoroughly, he said, addressing the room. But if these allegations are accurate, and the documents appear legitimate, we'll have no choice but to call for a special election to replace Karen and any other non-compliant board members. Karen's face twisted in fury as she realized the tide had turned against her. For the first time, she was powerless, her mask of superiority stripped away. She stormed out of the meeting, muttering angrily under her breath, leaving behind a room buzzing with excitement and relief. Years of oppression had finally come to an end, and the residents of the neighborhood could breathe freely once again. In the days following the explosive meeting, word spread quickly throughout the community. Neighbors who had once lived in fear of Karen's wrath now celebrated their newfound freedom. Social media groups lit up with posts congratulating Alex for standing up to her and sharing stories of their own run-ins with Karen. It was as if a collective weight had been lifted, allowing the community to rediscover its spirit of camaraderie and individuality. Behind the scenes, Alex worked tirelessly to ensure that the HOA underwent meaningful reform. They collaborated with fellow residents to draft updated bylaws that prioritized fairness, transparency, and inclusivity. Gone were the days of draconian enforcement. Instead, the focus shifted to fostering a sense of belonging and encouraging creativity within the bounds of reason. Bright teal doors became a symbol of resistance and resilience, popping up across the neighborhood as homeowners reclaimed their right to express themselves. As for Karen, she quietly vacated the rental house shortly after receiving a polite letter informing her that her lease would not be renewed. Rumor had it she moved to a neighboring suburb, where she reportedly joined another HOA. But whether she managed to seize power there remained unknown. Back in Alex's community, however, her legacy served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked authority and the importance of holding leaders accountable. For Alex, the experience was transformative. They went from being a reluctant participant in neighborhood politics to becoming a beacon of hope and change. Their courage inspired others to speak up and demand better, not just from their leaders, but from themselves as well. In the end, the big reveal wasn't just about exposing Karen's hypocrisy. It was about empowering an entire community to rise above fear and embrace the beauty of unity and diversity. The fallout from the explosive HOA meeting rippled through the neighborhood like a tidal wave, leaving no corner untouched. For years, Karen's authoritarian grip had stifled creativity and individuality, reducing the community to a monotonous sea of beige houses and clipped hedges. But now, with her reign dismantled and her hypocrisy exposed, the residents found themselves standing at the precipice of change. It was a moment filled with both uncertainty and possibility, a chance to redefine what it meant to live in harmony while celebrating their differences. In the days following the meeting, the neighborhood buzzed with conversations about what had transpired. Social media groups dedicated to the community lit up with posts congratulating Alex for their bravery and sharing stories of past encounters with Karen. One neighbor recounted how she'd been fined $50 for hanging a string of holiday lights too early in November. Another described how Karen had demanded they remove a bird feeder because it attracted squirrels, which she claimed violated the HOA's pest control policy. These anecdotes painted a picture of a woman who thrived on micromanagement, using fear and intimidation to maintain order, or rather, conformity. But now, with Karen gone, these grievances served as reminders of how far the community had come. Neighbors began exchanging ideas for revitalizing the neighborhood, proposing everything from themed block parties to communal gardens. Some even suggested hosting an annual Teal Door Day, in honor of Alex's defiant teal-painted front door, which had become a symbol of resistance against oppressive rules. The energy was palpable, infectious even, as residents embraced the opportunity to reclaim their space and express themselves freely. Alex, meanwhile, became something of a local hero. While they hadn't set out to become the face of a grassroots movement, their actions had sparked a chain reaction that transformed the community. People stopped them on the street to thank them, offering hugs or pats on the back. At first, Alex felt overwhelmed by the attention, unsure of how to navigate their newfound role. But as time went on, they grew more comfortable stepping into the spotlight, not as a self-appointed leader, but as a facilitator of positive change. One of Alex's first priorities after the meeting was ensuring that the HOA underwent meaningful reform. They reached out to several trusted neighbors, people who had attended the meeting and expressed interest in helping reshape the organization, and formed a small committee tasked with drafting updated bylaws. This group met regularly, often gathering around Alex's dining room table late into the evening, fueled by coffee and determination. Their discussions were lively, sometimes heated, but always productive. Together, they worked to create policies that prioritized fairness, transparency, and inclusivity over rigid enforcement. Among the changes they proposed was a shift away from punitive measures. Instead of imposing fines for minor infractions, the new guidelines encouraged open dialogue between neighbors. If someone felt a particular action detracted from the community's overall aesthetic, they could voice their concerns respectfully, giving the other party an opportunity to address the issue voluntarily. Additionally, the committee introduced a system of rotating leadership roles, ensuring that no single individual could dominate the board indefinitely. Each member would serve a term limit, fostering accountability and preventing power imbalances. Another key initiative involved creating a community creativity fund, designed to support projects that enhance the neighborhood's character without sacrificing cohesion. Residents could apply for grants to fund initiatives such as mural painting, garden installations, or public art displays. The goal was simple yet profound: to celebrate diversity and encourage self-expression within a framework of mutual respect. By empowering individuals to contribute creatively, the committee hoped to foster a stronger sense of belonging among residents. As word of these reforms spread, participation in HOA meetings skyrocketed. Gone were the days when only a handful of people showed up, passively nodding along as Karen dictated terms. Now, the gatherings brimmed with enthusiasm, with neighbors eagerly offering input on everything from landscaping plans to holiday decorations. The atmosphere was collaborative rather than combative, marked by laughter and shared purpose. Even those who had previously avoided involvement altogether began attending, drawn by the promise of a more inclusive and supportive environment. Karen, unsurprisingly, disappeared from the scene entirely. Shortly after receiving Alex's polite letter informing her that her lease would not be renewed, she vacated the rental house and moved elsewhere. Rumors swirled about her whereabouts. Some speculated she'd relocated to a neighboring suburb, where she reportedly joined another HOA. Whether she managed to seize power there remained unknown, though many doubted anyone would fall for her tactics again. Back in Alex's community, however, her legacy served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked authority and the importance of holding leaders accountable. For Alex personally, the resolution brought a mix of emotions. On one hand, they felt immense pride in having stood up to Karen and inspired others to do the same. Seeing the neighborhood blossom into a vibrant tapestry of colors, personalities, and ideas filled them with joy. On the other hand, they couldn't shake the lingering sadness that came with realizing just how much damage Karen had inflicted over the years. Countless friendships had been strained, families alienated, and dreams crushed under the weight of her tyranny. While the wounds were healing, scars remained, a reminder of the resilience required to rebuild trust and unity. Despite this, Alex refused to dwell on negativity. They chose instead to focus on the future, channeling their energy into nurturing the community they loved. One of their proudest accomplishments was organizing the inaugural Neighborhood Unity Festival, held on a sunny Saturday in late spring. The event featured food trucks, live music, and activities for all ages, including a gnome decorating contest, a nod to Alex's own collection, and a paint-your-front-door workshop. Families mingled freely, laughing and sharing stories, as children darted between booths clutching balloons and cotton candy. It was a day of pure joy, a testament to the power of collective effort and goodwill. The festival also provided an opportunity to officially recognize Alex's contributions. During a brief ceremony, the mayor presented them with a certificate of appreciation, praising their courage and leadership in transforming the neighborhood. Alex accepted the award humbly, crediting their neighbors for their unwavering support. "This isn't just my victory, it's ours," they said, addressing the crowd. "Together, we've proven that kindness and collaboration can overcome fear and division. Let's keep building a community where everyone feels welcome and valued." As the weeks turned into months, the changes continued to take root. Houses once indistinguishable from one another began reflecting their owners' unique tastes. A bright yellow door appeared across the street, followed by a purple one adorned with intricate carvings. Flower beds burst with color, and quirky lawn ornaments dotted the landscape. Even the mailboxes, once uniform in design, now showcased a delightful variety of shapes and styles. The neighborhood had become a living canvas, each home telling its own story. Perhaps most importantly, relationships improved dramatically. Neighbors who had barely spoken before now exchanged warm greetings and offered help when needed. Block parties became a regular occurrence, drawing crowds eager to connect and celebrate. Children played together freely, their laughter echoing through the streets. The sense of isolation that had plagued so many during Karen's tenure gave way to a spirit of camaraderie and belonging. Looking back, Alex marveled at how much had changed in such a short time. What started as a personal conflict had evolved into a broader movement, one that transcended individual grievances and tapped into universal desires for connection and self-expression. They realized that fighting back wasn't just about revenge or vindication. It was about standing up for what's right and inspiring others to do the same. In exposing Karen's hypocrisy, Alex had uncovered not only her flaws, but also the strength and resilience of their community. On a quiet afternoon, as Alex sat on their porch watching kids chase each other down the cul-de-sac, they reflected on everything that had happened. Life in the neighborhood was better than ever. Not perfect, perhaps, but infinitely more hopeful. Freed from Karen's shadow, residents had rediscovered the joy of living authentically, unburdened by arbitrary rules and stifling expectations. And Alex, who had once simply wanted peace, had inadvertently become a catalyst for lasting transformation. It was fitting, then, that their teal-painted front door remained a focal point of the neighborhood. To some, it represented defiance, to others, creativity. But to Alex, it symbolized something deeper, the power of standing firm in the face of adversity and embracing one's true self, no matter the cost. As they sipped their coffee and watched the sun dip below the horizon, casting golden light across the row of colorful houses, Alex smiled knowingly. Justice, it seemed, looked good in teal.